There has been a really interesting turnaround involving one of the wireless and mobile carriers and their position on net neutrality. Sprint has officially thrown their support behind reclassifying internet service providers under Title II and creating meaningful Title II-based net neutrality rules. In a filing with the FCC, Sprint declares that they're perfectly fine calling ISPs Title II, filing them under Title II, as long as there are rules smart enough to protect reasonable network management. That has not been an issue so far. And there are other ISPs like Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast, and we've talked to you about their position, which is that if Title II does take governance over internet service providers, that it will stifle investment in the broadband sector and that it will just be really bad, even though privately they've admitted to investors that the rules really aren't a big deal. And Sprint has come out and they've said very publicly, Title II rules done correctly will have no impact whatsoever on our willingness to invest in network infrastructure. Quote, they said, so long as the FCC continues to allow wireless carriers to manage our networks and differentiate our products, Sprint will continue to invest in data networks regardless of whether they're regulated by Title II or some other light touch regulatory regime. Now, there is, if we look at the language here, there is some interesting language that we should pay attention to, which is when Sprint writes about differentiating their products, it's talking about possibly creating internet fast lanes where it can charge certain companies more money to ensure that traffic is delivered more quickly on their network. And everyone has a different definition of what light touch regulation means, right? That's a very subjective term. But still, this is huge because Sprint is the only one of these companies who has publicly said classifying ISPs under Title II would be no big deal and we would keep making investments.
It could be that they see this as an inevitability, and perhaps in joining joining the right side of this battle early would give them some type of advantage over their competitors.
And it could be a PR thing as well, because now that Sprint has said Title II would be fine, they are directly opposed to their competitor, T-Mobile, where CEO John Legere has been making huge waves. They try to say, T-Mobile does, that they're consumer friendly, but they're opposed to Title II regulation over ISPs, which is actually something that would be good for consumers. So it could be a pretty good PR move for Sprint as well. And that would be particularly logical, as if you suggest, Lewis, they see this as an inevitability. They might as well get ahead of the PR curve while they can.
Yeah, I'm sure factored into this decision that there is the ultimate goal of profit. But maybe not. Maybe they see themselves being at the same place regardless of this legislation.
And the other reason that this is a big deal is that when you have an entire industry, every player in an industry united behind one position on a particular issue, it's much harder to say that it can be more difficult to show that that position is wrong because you have this unanimity. And you can say, well, obviously they're unanimous because they're focused on their profits. You now open that up because you say, well, there's not even unanimity among these companies as to whether being put under Title II regulation would be good or bad. And that blows the entire conversation back open, and it gets us beyond just, oh, it's only about profits.
Yeah, it is great now to have one of these gigantic companies on our side, at least appearing to be on our side in this conversation.
Yeah, although it might be because of the inevitability and PR benefits of it, but at least publicly it is a good thing and it opens up some conversation, some at least not bad news when it comes to preserving internet freedom. We have a great program for you today. It is Friday. We have audience questions to answer and so much more.